frequently asked question: are conditions in place for a true conspiracy of secrecy? The answer to that is personally, I'm not big on conspiracies. It's very easy to just allow yourself to assume all this stuff's going on, to imagine there's a whole heap of organised secrecy going on. I think, again, from what I've seen of the Tasmanian government, it's not capable of keeping a big secret like that. There's too many factions, too much infighting, too much pettiness. But what I would suggest is that there are structures in place where what you call a conspiracy of secrecy can happen. Now, for example, if you look at the late 90s, early 2000s in Tasmania, you had a series of 4 people, from a Thylacine sighting report to the Premier of the state. So all the sighting reports were managed by a bloke called Nick Mooney, who was the government guy for Thylacine information. If somebody went into the Wildlife Service and left a report, if they said, we've seen a thylacine, they fill out a report, that goes to Nick Mooney. He sticks it in his manila folder and it's kept secret from the public. Now, Nick Mooney is answerable directly to his boss, who is the director of the Parks and Wildlife Service. This is my understanding of the situation at that time. The director of the Parks and Wildlife Service is answerable to his boss, who is the minister who oversees the Parks and Wildlife Service. The minister is answerable to his boss, who is the Premier. So you've got the Premier, the Minister, the Director of Parks and Wildlife, and Nick Mooney, who keeps his information secret. Now, the Premier of Tasmania at that time was a logging man. He came up through the logging industry. He was a logging man, made no secret of the fact that he wanted to favour logging as an industry in Tasmania. It brought a lot of revenue for the state. It's good for the people of Tasmania. His minister was also a logging man, and at the time there were allegations that these two were working corruptly, secretly, for whatever purposes, but it had nothing to do with animal welfare, as you can imagine. Anyway, the Director of Parks and Wildlife was Nick Mooney's brother. So you got Nick Mooney's brother, the Minister and the Premier. That is the path where Thylacine information travelled. How hard would it be for the Premier, who's a logging man, who knows full well what would happen if the Thylacine was rediscovered? How hard would it be for him to have a off-the-record discussion in the hallway that, we got to do something. Look at this can of worms that's there. There's reports of the Tasmanian tigers, could pop up. We don't want that. So the best thing to do is just keep it secret. Don't encourage information, and do what you can to prevent private searchers from finding it, because that's the last thing we want, is an uncontrolled private searcher. It's just better for everybody if we keep a lid on this can of worms. Now, that's the extent of any conspiracy that I can see. I don't know if you call that a conspiracy or not, but that's not only possible, it's totally logical. In fact, it's pretty naive to think that hasn't happened many times over the past 100 years in Tasmania. All right.